Hey everyone, Jeff here from the Your Move team. Can you imagine what it would look like if an industry-leading illustrator sketched Andy's bottom lines and big ideas from the Breathing Room series all onto one page? We can and did, and we think you're going to love it. Visit yourmove.is/newsletter to see an incredibly visual and memorable approach to wrapping up this series. That's yourmove.is/newsletter, where you can grab your copy today. We really do believe that the next 30 minutes will help you make better decisions and live with fewer regrets. So today, we're going to begin with Andy's first message in his 3-part series, Comparison Trap. Now, being richer or smarter or funnier may feel like a short-term win. However, in today's message, Andy reminds us that no one wins the comparison game.
This is a great Sunday to be watching, or a great time to be watching, because we're jumping into a brand new series called The Comparison Trap. And the way this came about is I've noticed this thing in my life, and you know, when you notice something in your life and you start working on it or looking for ways to deal with it, I thought, you know, at my age, I should be over this. I should be over my inclination to look to my left, look to my right, see what everybody else is doing, and compare myself and measure myself and determine who I am and how well I'm doing and if I'm okay based on what everybody else is doing. I mean, it's just kind of sick. And so I just started saying, God, you know, do I ever get over this? And so then I began talking about it with some other people, and I realized I'm not the only one. So, let's see if I can explain this. As I began to compare my tendency to compare myself to other people, to other people's tendency to compare themselves to other people, I felt better about myself in comparison, which is the problem. So anyway, I decided, you know what, if everybody else is struggling with this, or if this is a common thing, we should talk about it. And I don't think I can get over my problem in 1 week. And the longer I talk about something, the more I learn. So we're going to talk about this for 3 weeks. Now, I think it began with me where it began with most of you in school. For me, I don't remember elementary school or middle school because I blanked those out, but I do remember high school. And I remember in high school, I wasn't athletic, so I hated athletes, and I wasn't smart, so I hated smart people, and I wasn't cool, so I hated cool people. So I was in a pretty small group. It was pretty much me, okay? And it wasn't that there was anything wrong with athletes, smart people, or cool people. It's just that it was easier to hate them than to look in the mirror and say, Andy, you'll never be athletic, you'll never be smart, and you'll never be cool. And I was in a very large high school, which I kept using as an excuse. Well, look how big this place is. You know, there's no way I'll ever measure up. But that was just my defense mechanism, because my natural inclination was to measure my value to the school based on what everybody else was doing. I bet you have your own story. I think that's why middle school is completely, you know, blanked out for me. But there, you know, we live in a world, it's not even just the world we live in, I think it's the way we're designed. We're always looking to our left and our right, trying to figure out, how am I doing? And am I acceptable? Am I measuring up? And basically, we all want a bigger added to all the adjectives that describe us. In fact, the name of this message is the land of And this is where we all live. In other words, let me kind of flesh it out for you. We want to be richer, we want to be skinnier, we want to be smarter, taller, prettier, happier, hipper, talented, right? I just want more I want more than you, because if I have more than you, then I feel better about me, and I like you and everything. I just like to go away from lunch or go away from coffee or go home at night going, no, they're good, but I'm okay? I'm whatever they are plus some And then it's even worse, okay? Because then you start dating, and then you want your boyfriend or your girlfriend to have some right? I want him to be richer, her to be skinnier, him to be handsomer, and it's all about that. Then you get married, and you want lots of with your spouse, and the problem there is we lie to ourselves, and I'm hoping that in these 3 weeks together, if we don't do anything else, we'll quit lying to ourselves about this. We tell ourselves, well, I just want my husband, or I just want my wife to reach their full potential. So we start in them. Like, you need to get a little here, and a little there, a little less there, you know, and it's really not even about them. It's about what people think about me. It's about what people think about you. And then you have kids. And then you see where everybody else's kids are going to school, and you hear about what everybody else's kids are reading and how advanced they are, and they skipped a grade, and they're playing up in sports. And then you start comparing your kids, and you start your kids. And again, it's not even about your kids. And you're like, well, I want my kids to reach their full potential. No, you're comparing your kids to other kids, and it's really you're comparing yourself to your other people. You're comparing your parenting skills to other parents, and you love it. I mean, you won't admit this. You love it when other kids when your friends' kids mess up, don't you? You love it when they get in trouble. You love it when they don't get a scholarship. You love it when they don't get into the school of your choice. Now, you can't say that because you're Christians. You go, oh, I'm so sorry. What is that? I mean, that's just evil, isn't it? I mean, that's embarrassing. That really is evil. If you don't think there's sin in the world, just pay attention to the conversations you have with yourself, or, your feelings of elation when something bad happens to someone you care about. What is that? It's because we live in the land of Ur. We just all want a little, and then there's the other side of it. There's the people who we really do have a little more than them, and we look at them because, they're a little heavier, and, they're a little slower, and their son's a little slower, and I notice your daughter's a little shorter, and, they're a little poorer, and he's a little nerdier, and, I'm nerdy, but he's nerdier, and so I feel about, and then we have another problem. We start feeling superior, and we know we shouldn't feel that either. And so you look to the left and people are better. You look to the right, people aren't as good. You're somewhere in the middle. And either way you look, it's really just gross. And I don't have to tell you what a bad habit that is. I don't have to tell you that it doesn't take you any place, that there's really no win in all of that. But there we are. And that's just kind of how we go. Then, to keep this going, there's another group of us, sort of a subcategory. We're not happy with at all. We want est. Okay? I don't want to be richer. I want to be richest. I want to be smartest. I want to be happiest. I want to be healthiest. I want to be retweetedest. Okay? I want to be in a category all by myself so that when people compare themselves to me, that's like, whoa, now I'm not saying this is me. I'm just saying I've met people like this, okay? And maybe there's a slice of you and some part of you that you're all about this. And again, you lie to yourself. You say, well, I'm just reaching my full potential. I'm just going to do my best. And as we're going to see, there's a place for all of that. But there may be a thread of this other illness in you that is I know it's in me, where I'm constantly measuring myself by people around me, trying to determine, am I okay? Now, you may be way, way, way further down the road than me, and you may be way healthier than me, and maybe a minute ago when I said I hated athletes and you're like, oh, don't be a hater, you shouldn't hate, and I applaud you if you've never felt like somebody was better than you and you didn't hate them, but maybe you're on the other side of this, because you look in the mirror and you realize, you know what? It's not his fault that he's richer than me, and it's not her fault that she's prettier than me, and it's not their fault that their kids are smarter than mine. It's not really their fault. You look in the mirror and you hate you. You just don't like you. And you've gone beyond, not liking other people, but when you look in the mirror, and the reason you don't like you is because you will never be as, fill in the blank, as them. You just know you'll never measure up. You may never be that happy. You may never be that happily married. You may never have that kind of financial margin. You may never look like that, live like that, drive like that. Your kids probably aren't ever going to go to those kinds of schools. And you look in the mirror and you just, what do you do? What do you do? So the bottom line, if you don't get anything else out of the series, if you fall asleep in the next 30 seconds, and if you don't come back or you lose your electricity at home or whatever, here's what I don't want you to forget. In fact, if we all just took this one simple idea, it comes from Scripture, as we'll see in a minute, but if you took this one simple idea and you just put it somewhere on a card in a drawer on your mirror, and every time you began veering to see, oh, how am I doing compared to them, and how am I doing? If this one thought would help reset our thinking in terms of this whole conversation or this whole topic, this could be a game changer, and it's simply this. There's no win in comparison. There's no win in comparison. There's no win. There's no finish line. There's no final sense of satisfaction. There's no win. So here's the question we're going to ask, and here's what we're going to wrestle with for the next few weeks. What do we do? What do you do about that? I mean, your mind just goes there. You don't like it, it just goes there. How do you motivate your kids, or how do you motivate your husband or wife to improve? I mean, we got to improve. We got to work hard. We have to do our best. There's all of that. But how do we do that and not slip into this comparison trap where there's no win and we're constantly frustrated? And here's the amazing thing, is I have wrestled with this and, tried to come to some conclusions in my own life. I open the Scripture and I ask that question, is there any help in here about my habit of comparing myself to people around me? And boom, There it is. In fact, today we're going to look in the book of Ecclesiastes. Again, if you're not really a God person or a Jesus person or a Bible person, find a Bible and read the book of Ecclesiastes. And if you do, here's what will happen. You'll be reading it and you'll go, that's right. I didn't know that was in here. I think I heard that in a song. Yeah, It's amazing what's in Ecclesiastes. It's safe. There are no miracles, and it's before Jesus, okay? So it's a great place to start if you're skeptic. And it's packed full of wisdom. So Solomon, who did more than you'll ever do, okay? His wives were prettier than your wife will ever be, okay? Whatever you think you're going to do and accomplish, you're not going to keep up with Solomon. Solomon, the wisest man in the world, created one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, was the wealthiest person in his lifetime. Kings and queens came and sat at his feet and asked for wisdom. Solomon looks at the world and he addresses this issue of our tendency to compare ourselves to other people. Ecclesiastes chapter 4, here's what he says. This is fascinating. And I saw that all toil, how much? All. I saw that all toil and all achievement spring from one person's envy of another. It's like, what? He goes, yeah, I've been watching people. I'm a student of behavior. And I realized that for the most part, the thing that drives people is competition. The thing that drives people is they're looking over their left shoulder, their right shoulder. They're trying to figure out what everybody else is doing, where they're shopping, what they're wearing, what they're doing, how much they're making, what they're driving, where they're living. And it's all about, they're driven, their toil is driven by what they see people around them doing. Now, I read that and I thought, that was 3,000 years ago. I feel better about my issues, okay? This has been going on for a long time, 3,000 years ago. In fact, let me summarize his observation in this next statement. Here's what he's saying is this. He saw people determining where they were based on where everybody else was. He saw people determining, am I okay? I'm okay. Am I okay? I'm not okay. Are my kids okay? My kids are okay. Is my wife okay? It's like, he said, I looked around, it looked like everybody is determining if they're okay based on what everybody else is doing. He said, this is just what I've observed. It's human nature. And this is his summary of that whole idea. This is amazing. This too is meaningless, a chasing after the wind. So Solomon, what do you think about this whole thing of looking to my left and my right to determine how I'm doing? He'd say, it's meaningless. It's chasing after the wind. Now, Solomon, chasing after the wind, you can't really catch the wind. Exactly. There's no finish line. There's never a sense of satisfaction. There's never tranquility, and there's never any peace. To which, some of the men in the audience say, okay, so are you saying we're not supposed to do our best? Are you saying we're not supposed to try? Are you saying we're just supposed to fold our hands and just kind of sit back? Solomon's the wisest man in the world. So the next statement is this. Fools fold their hands and ruin themselves. Now, don't think for a minute I'm not telling you to be ambitious. I'm Solomon. Have you seen my temple? Okay? I'm Solomon. Have you seen my gardens? I'm Solomon. I got 300-something wives and 600-something concubines. I'm a busy guy. I've been around. I got a lot going on. I'm Solomon. I have more gold than Fort Knox. I'm Solomon. So I'm not saying you sit around and do nothing. You don't leverage your potential. You don't become the best you can be. I'm not saying that at all. Only a fool would fold their hands and do nothing. And the idea in this little verse is eventually if you do nothing, you self-destruct. You hurt yourself. All right, Solomon, you got me. So what are you saying? And then this next verse. I'm telling you, if you've ever been inclined to memorize a verse of scripture, this one is a great place to start or a next step. Because the whole idea of there's no win in comparison, here's his way of kind of fleshing that out. Here's what he said. This is so cool. Better one handful with tranquility than 2 handfuls with toil and chasing after the wind. Better 1 handful with tranquility than 2 handfuls full of toil and chasing after the wind. And the Hebrew imagery here is very, very rich. Here's what this looks like. He says this, it's better to have one hand open. The implication being that God can put in it or take out of it whatever God chooses. It is better to have one hand open and to only have what one hand can hold than to have 2 fists clenched hanging on to everything you can get. It is better to have one hand open with tranquility. It is better to have one hand open and to learn to be content with whatever one hand can hold than to have 2 fists clenched around everything you can get. He said, because if you live like this, there will never be peace, there will never be tranquility, It is chasing after the wind. Because after you have tightened your fingers around all you can get, there's always something you can't get. And you're never at peace, and there's never any tranquility. And Solomon, richest guy in his generation, says, I've been watching this, and here's what I've determined. One handful, better is one handful with tranquility than two fistfuls of stuff that you can't ever be satisfied with. If you just let that thought settle in on you, if you just let that one thought, and as you begin to reach for more, as you begin to ignore your family because you have another deal, as you start to compare your daughter to, so-and-so's daughter, as you begin to try to motivate your son because you heard what somebody else's son is doing, as you begin to, bring up that issue with your wife again, and you realize it's really my issue, not her issue, and you pause and you say, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm doing this. There's no peace there. There's no tranquility there. Now, Solomon's wisest guy in the world doesn't stop there. Again I saw, he keeps going, gives us another visual. Again I saw something meaningless under the sun. This is so funny. It's like, welcome to my message today. I want to talk about some meaningless things. Get out your notebooks and let's talk about meaningless things. And yet somehow Solomon, the wisest man in the world, makes even meaningless things interesting. So he says, let me tell you about yet another meaningless thing I saw. There was a man all alone. Now, we don't know if this is a category of people. We don't know if he actually had a friend this actually happened to. We don't know if this is a parable, but here he goes. There was a man all alone. He had neither son nor brother, which meant in this culture and context, he had nobody to leave anything to. You couldn't leave stuff to your wives. You couldn't leave things to women. Women couldn't inherit anything 3,000 years ago. And so he says, there's a man, and he has no one to leave anything to. He's all alone. And yet, check this out, there was no end to his toil. Yet his eyes were not content with his wealth. He says, so here's this guy, I'm watching him, he's a friend of mine, or here's a category of people. They work and work and work and work and work and work and work, and they're never content. There's always more to do. There's always another goal. There's always something else to do. There's always something else to achieve. There's always something else to build. They just work and work and work and work and work, and they're never content. And then he says this guy, or this category of people, one day in the midst of all this toil, never being content, yet no one to leave anything to, he stops and he asks a very important question. Again, it's a question that our tendency is to answer quickly, but it's a question if we stop and say, really, really, really. Here's the question. For whom am I toiling? Why am I doing all this? Why do I live like this? Why am I constantly, left and right and left and right? What are they doing? Am I okay? Am I okay? Well, for whom am I toiling, he asks, and why am I depriving myself of enjoyment? Why is it I can't stop and enjoy what I've spent my entire life and leveraged everything for in order to get? Why is it, what is it in me that just gotta keep, just churn it out? And I get this stuff, or I get this family, and I'm not even really enjoying it. And he says, why am I doing this? Who am I really doing this for? What's driving me? And Solomon says, well, it's what I said at the beginning. Because it's human nature, unless you do something about it, it is human nature to take your cue from the person on the left and the right, and to be constantly comparing and competing. And then Solomon summarizes it this way. I love this. This too is meaningless. I love this. It's a miserable business. This too is meaningless. It's a miserable business. He says, as long as you're trying to always have two handfuls and realize, I wish I had a third hand, it doesn't matter what's in your hands. It doesn't matter what you accomplish. It doesn't matter how smart your kids are, how cute your wife is. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter what your GPA is or what you made on the SAT. As long as your mindset is like this, it is a miserable business, and you will never be able to enjoy your life. Bottom line, there's no win. There's no win in comparison. There's no win in comparison. What if we learn? This is what I'm hoping we're going to do for the next few weeks. What if we learned to live like this? And what if we learned to catch ourselves when we started to do this with ourselves in our academic pursuits, in our professional pursuits? What if we learn to live like this with our families? And what if we learn to catch ourselves right before we got 2 handfuls and then we're mad because we only had 2 hands? What if we learn to live, as we're going to talk about this in the 3rd week especially, what if we could learn to live like this with God? Because here's the deal. The bottom line is, all of us are using something or someone as a mirror. All of us are looking somewhere to determine how we're doing really. And the bottom line, and the thing you got to determine is this, and you already have an answer to this question, okay? You may not know what it is, but we all have an answer to this question. The question is, what or who am I going to use as my reference point to tell me I'm okay? What or who am I going to use as a reference point to assure me that I'm okay? Or to tell me that I'm doing all right? And do you know what I've learned? I mean, this is so funny to me. The older I get, it just seems like you should move past this. I've met older people who are super successful, younger people who are super successful, older people with great families, younger people with great families, and no matter how old or how young or how great or how not great, there's something in all of us that's looking somewhere for something or someone to tell us, you're okay. You're okay. You're right where you need to be. You're doing exactly what you ought to do. You're okay. You don't need to do any more. You don't need to do any less. You're fine. So the question I want to leave us with is this one. Where are you looking? Is it your dad, you know? Is it family? Is it dollars? Is it your boss? Is it your industry that you're in? Is it how you look? Is it how well your kids do? Is it how well your husband does? I mean, what's your mirror? What or who are you looking to feel like, I'm okay? And Solomon says, if you look to somebody to your left or somebody to your right, if you're not careful, you're going to be like this, and you're never going to feel like you're okay no matter what you achieve, what your family achieves, what your kids achieve, what he looks like, what she looks like, what you drive, or where you win. Solomon, who had it all, said, I'm just telling you, I've been there, done that. It's chasing after the win. So, next week, we're going to dive right into the question, what should our mirror be? If we're going to look somewhere, where do we look? But before I let you out of here, I want to make sure that you're as stirred up as you can possibly be. So I just want to ask you a few questions real quick, okay? And these are my make you mad questions, okay? These are my I wish he hadn't said that questions. These are I wish he'd let us out 4 minutes early questions. All right, so here's your questions. Are you exhausted from trying to keep up with fill in the blank? Are you exhausted? Are you tired? Come on, let's be honest. Is there something in you that's like, I wish I just didn't even know what they had. I just wish I didn't even know where they were going on vacation. Because in our culture, see, here's the deal. If you lived on a farm, and it was you and your spouse and your 3 kids, and once a month you went into town for supplies, and there was no internet, you'd be so content. Because it's awareness that drives our discontentment. But our discontent. But awareness isn't going away. So let me ask you something. Are you exhausted? Is there something in you that you're kind of tired for trying to keep up? Second question. Are you broke from trying to keep up with fill in the blank? Is this part of your financial issue? I mean, you blame it on debt, you blame it on the economy, and you lost your job, and you went for it, and there's all that stuff, and that's real. But maybe at the root of all this, maybe behind all this, maybe before those financial problems surfaced, there was something in you, and just for the sake of keeping up with, I don't know who it is. Now you have, or it's contributed to your financial problems. That's all I'm asking, could that be part of the issue? Are you allowing what others have to keep you from enjoying what you have? Are you allowing what others have to keep you from enjoying what you have? Because you have 8.5-foot ceilings and they have 10.5-foot ceilings, now you hate your house. It's like every time you walk in your house, you feel like you have to duck. And now you don't enjoy your house. And do you know why you don't enjoy your house? Your house was the same, okay? Well, you have 10-a-foot and they have 12-foot, right? You have 3.5, 4.5, bedrooms. They got 6.5. Their basements, and it just goes on and on and on. Are you allowing what others have to keep you from enjoying what you have? You know what that is? That's chasing after the wind. How about this one? Do you enjoy your kids Or are you driving them crazy because of what everybody else's kids are accomplishing? Do you enjoy your children? Or are you just pushing? Because you're so aware of what they could do, and there's other stuff out, and there's another scholarship, and you hear about so-and-so's going to such and such. I mean, can you just take a deep breath and enjoy your children? Do you know there are couples who would love to have had your child, your son, your daughter, and they can't? It's like, I didn't think about that. You should think about that. Because the issue isn't your child. The issue isn't their SAT score. The issue isn't which school they got into. The issue isn't are they in the A group, the B group, or the C group. The issue is they're your child. Can you enjoy them? Or are you just going to drive them crazy because of what somebody might think about you as a parent? See how dangerous this is? Last question, and this is, who would you secretly enjoy seeing fail? I hate that question. Who would you secretly enjoy seeing fail? Isn't that the ugliest part of the human spirit? Isn't that the ugliest part of you? It's the ugliest part of me. When someone I say I care about or that I've cheered for or that I'm for, or it's a friend, and you hear something bad that happens, and of course on the phone you're going, oh, that's terrible. And there's a little itty-bitty something in you that feels good about it. Is that like if you don't believe in sin, isn't that just ugly? Who would you secretly rejoice seeing fail? All of a sudden, that wrinkle-free life they seem to have, their cars don't even need washing. It's just ridiculous how amazing their life is. And then you hear there's a bump in their relationship, or there's a bump with one of their kids, and there's something in you that's like, you feel relieved? Is that just ugly? Do you know what that is? That's this thing that he's talking about. It's like, I feel better because I only have 2 fistfuls, but they lost some of theirs. What is that? Imagine if all that went away. And that I could rejoice with people when things go well, and I could genuinely mourn with people when things don't go well. See, you'll never get there. I'll never get there by looking to my left and my right. There's no win in comparison. Last question is, are you chasing after the win? See, here's the thing. Then we're done. See, you can't genuinely love someone that you secretly hope will fail. You can't genuinely love someone that you're pushing to perform better so you'll feel better about you. In other words, you can't really be a sincere follower of Jesus Christ and chase the wind at the same time. This is a spiritual issue. If you're a Christian, this is a profoundly spiritual issue. So together, let's knock it off. Let's stop. Let's go from this to this. Let's stop chasing the wind, because here's what we all know. There's no win. There's no win in comparison.
Thanks so much for listening to Your Move. Don't forget to check out yourmove.is/newsletter to grab your illustrated copy